and a very warm welcome to you again today. And over the next 30 minutes, what are we going to be doing on the Open Door webinar show? Well, as always, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of small-scale property development. And as always, again, we're going to be talking to some of the movers and shakers out there. And today, we've got a bit of a treat for you. I can absolutely be certain of that, because we want to know what's happening out there. You want to know what's happening out there in the world of property, and be shining a spotlight on all those areas where there is opportunity, particularly for developers to take a look at. And always, you know what the score is here at Open Door. We always have a bit of fun because life is definitely too short not to do that. So what's happening on today's show? Well, a little bit different, okay? Normally we interview people, we have a proper chat, I interview them, they tell us all about what's going on. I thought we'd do something a little bit more conversational today, because actually, today, we've got with us Mr. Simon Zutshi from the Property Investors Network. Simon, hello and welcome.
Richie, hello. How are you today?
I'm very good, my friend. You well?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Just been finishing an event, really, really good. Pumped, ready to go and enjoy a conversation with you.
Good stuff. So look, folks, so what I thought we would do, rather than me just sort of interview some, I thought we'd have a bit of a discussion between us on where some of the interesting opportunities might be. I hope you're going to be happy with that. It's a good idea, isn't it, Simon?
Great idea, Richie. Take it away.
Good stuff. Okay. So look, that big question, what's happening in 2023 in the property market? What strategies should you be considering? What should you be looking at? Maybe you're completely new to property. Maybe you're already in property. Maybe you've got some buy-to-lets. Maybe you've got some HMO service departments. Maybe you're looking at that next stage and you want to know all those things that you should consider. And of course, people, I think, Simon, I don't know what you think. I think people are always looking for sustainable property strategies that can last the test of the time, through these ups, through these downs. And, what do you think, we should be looking at? And that's the important thing I think we want to discuss today in 2023. That is so important, because I guess the first thing is, why do people even want to think about getting into property?
Yeah, well, see, Richie, I wish there was one, as someone who teaches property, I wish there was one strategy that worked for everyone, but there isn't, The strategy you pick should be based very much on what do you actually want to achieve? Do you want to get cash flow? Do you want to build an equity pot? What are you looking to get out of it? And I think that's the self-reflective question that everyone needs to ask themselves, first of all, to get really clear on what do they want to get from property? Because unless you're clear on what you want and you know why you want it, in reality, you're probably not going to make time for it, because we know you need to put some time and effort into this. If you want to get great rewards, it doesn't happen just like that. You've got to put effort in. And so that you prioritize learning and taking action, you've got to have a really strong reason why. So I think that's a great point for everyone to start. Think about, what do you want to get? And actually, when you think about what happened in COVID, where so many people were laid off or put onto furlough, I think you should be really thinking about your income that's coming in. I think you should be thinking about what happens if you can't work. What about pension? Is your pension going to provide for you? Do you even know how much your pension is going to be? And these are all things that you should think about in 2023, because this is going to be an incredible year of opportunity for those people who are educated and prepared to get out there and take a bit of a risk. When I say risk, I'm talking about calculate. There's no guarantees in life, but if you're not prepared to risk anything, you're not going to make any progress. So I think it's really important to think about what do you want to achieve, and then think about, do you think there's going to be a downturn? We've already seen prices start to come down. Do you think we're going to see the continued recession? Maybe you're concerned about that. Maybe you don't know if you should be investing or not. Maybe you're thinking, should I wait until the market hits the bottom? But there's one thing for sure, where there's uncertainty, there is huge opportunity. I'm sure you'd agree, Ritchie, right?
Because absolutely. Go on.
No, so I was just going to say, because most people, particularly people who are not in a great community like this, who are trying to do it on their own, they're going to be scared. They're going to have fear. They're going to be paralyzed, not knowing what to do. But the reality is there are some strategies that actually are kind of recession-proof and will always work no matter what's going on. And Ritchie, do you want to share some details around that?
I think so, but let's just go back as well, because I think they said this is a bit of a discussion point. And I think worth just saying as well, for all those people out there listening, just to confirm, Simon and I, our businesses with the Incharbon Business Partner, we have formed the PIN partnership. We work very closely in partnership together. And so you can trust that whatever you like about propertyCEO, whatever you like about PIN, you're going to get treated the same. We work very much together. We've got the same values, and we're out there to try and support our customers jointly. And I think the important thing, Simon, that you said there is, wouldn't it be nice if there was just one simple strategy? Yeah, go and do that. But of course, times can change, and you've got to get on the right journey. The worst scenario, and one of the reasons that we teamed up with Simon, we get a lot of people come to us and go, I want to do development. I want to earn six-figure sums of money, and I want to do it in the next 6 months. I've got to replace my income. And of course, you go, no, you can't do that. And we've wanted somewhere to put them and go, no, you need a bit of passive income. Literally, as Simon said, then maybe you've got to think about replacing that income, and you've got to get that £5,000-6,000 a month income to better leave that job, get through that recession. Of course, and I bet you've heard that quite a few times, haven't you? People think about development.
Absolutely. And we know that development, when you do it right, can give you huge amounts of profit. But that's normally at the end of the project. It might be a year, 18 months, 2 years down the line. So whilst it's very profitable, it doesn't give you cash flow. So you've got to be really clear on what exactly do you want to achieve, and pick the strategy that's going to give you the result. Now, if you don't need cash flow, you've got a great income coming in, you love what you're doing, you're financially independent already, maybe you're a successful investor with lots of property, then maybe you really should be thinking about small scale development, because you can get these big lumps of cash that you can either use as deposits for more properties you want to buy and develop, or maybe you want to pay down some debt, whatever you want to do. But these big cash events are very useful to all property investors, but they don't give you cash flow.
I think what we could do tonight, because these are half-hour shows, we could actually, Simon and I could spend 2 or 3 hours with you, and maybe we'll do some further shows on further strategies later. But I think if we talk about, what strategy that could we consider, and this is just one strategy, and particularly because it's where propertyCEO focus, we only deal with development. Simon's business deals with HMO, service departments, rent, all sorts of areas, buy-to-let and so on. But there is an interesting crossover that we both cover on some elements of development, and I think it would draw it out of this discussion. So maybe we talk, Simon, on today's show about small-scale property development and what that can do for you. Do you think that's a good thing to focus on?
I think that's a great idea, because actually it's a way of combining kind of rental property with development. Rather than going and buying a property, why not actually develop your own properties that then turn into rental property? Because you're going to get a much better deal. You can recycle most of your money, and you get a much higher return on investment. So I think it's a great thing for us to talk about.
Okay, so let's focus on that, folks, because I think Simon said earlier, it's when it's done right. And it's like anything, any of these strategies, you've got to do them right. And I think if we look at small scale development, we look at property development, it will work in any economic climate. Whatever the weather is, it will be fine when it's done right. And I think the first thing is just to be thinking about, what is small scale? What am I talking about? Because you might think, well, hang on, it's interesting, but is that just little houses for little people like me, like Mr. Clapson? Or is it bigger places for Ian Child, my business partner, who's about 12 foot tall or something like that? I don't know what he is. He's about that tall, isn't he? I don't know. He's pretty big.
I think he's only about 11 foot tall. It's not quite 12 foot.
11 foot, yeah, 11 foot. There you go. I mean, he likes to push the tall thing around. I don't, just because I'm only 4'3", I don't mind it. Anyway, small scale development. What is it? Well, look, it's a place in the market where it's developing between 5 and 20 units. That's really important. 5 to 20 units. And the big thing about that is the timescales, because we're talking about recessions, we're talking about changing markets, and these things creep up on us. I mean, most recessions, Simon, what do you think? How much in advance do you think we could predict a recession? 6, 12 months, 6 months minimum, wouldn't we?
I'd say 6 months, yeah, really, minimum.
Yeah. And so when we think about that prediction of 6 months, you don't want to be in a large development, because we're just talking about developments this evening, which could take you 3, 4, 5 years, because you could literally be getting into it. Recession comes along and you can't get out of it. The great thing about small scale development, the timescales, that's easy to say, isn't it? To get in and get out, to get started and get finished, are much shorter. We're talking probably 12, 18, maybe 24 months at the max. So you can see if you feel there's a recession coming on as a prediction, you can hold back. Okay. The likelihood is if you end up delivering right in the middle of recession, you can think about refinancing and holding it. You always have 2 exits in small scale. You either sell it or you refinance and hold it. You might choose, your first strategy is to refinance and hold. As Simon said, building your portfolio much quicker. So you combine being a landlord with actually being a developer and build that portfolio up fairly quick if you don't need that immediate passive income. Okay. So, this sort of timescale is so important. If the market is strong and it's rising, sell out for a healthy profit. If it's falling, okay, refinance, hold, even if that's not your primary strategy, hold for a healthy profit, because you can ride out that downturn. Because the truth is, when actually there's a downturn in the market, the rental market, Simon, is then very buoyant, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the rental market now is absolutely booming, and it has been for the last year. There's always a lag between the sales market and the rental market. But right now, if you've got good quality accommodation, you'll have no problem filling it, getting a really good rent. And that's what things you need to understand, because there is this huge underlying demand for accommodation in the UK. We live on this island with a limited amount of space and an increasing growing population. That's why over the long term, both property prices and rents go up over time, even if there's a short-term dip and a correction, which is what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I think that point about the underlying demand that Simon made is absolutely key. In this discussion this evening, or could be today, could be this morning, whenever you're listening to this, you could be listening to this in the car, I don't know. But whenever you're listening to this, okay, the underlying demand is so important, because we're supposed to build 300,000 houses this year. Someone said that's a bit of a myth the other day. I think one of the government ministers reported. I think it's just a bit of vote catching. But anyway, 300,000 houses, we don't get anywhere near it. So this underlying strategy is there. I think the important thing, though, is that you work what I define as the need market, okay, not the want market. 1, 2, 3 bed properties. And I think, Simon, you probably agree with the importance of this, because most of us can live in a 1, 2, 3 bed house. 4 and 5 beds are the want market. And particularly if you're looking for resales or even rentals, those properties are going to be the more difficult to sell and rent. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to look at the base level. Where are the family homes, the starter homes? There's always going to be a need for that. Aspirational homes, yeah, people have them, but in boom times, they're easy to sell. When the market comes down, they're not so easy to get rid of. So make sure there's a really strong demand. And also, you got to make sure you know what you're doing. There's a lot to learn about doing this. You've got to work out, what's going to actually sell or what's going to rent. It's not just, I'm going to make this because it's the most profitable scheme. Well, is there actually demand for that in that area? You can check that with local agents. You've got to think about the demographics. You've got to work out your numbers. You've got to pull a team together who's going to do all the work for you as property CEO. You are the boss organizing, or you're not the person there on site doing the project management, because frankly, you're not the best person to do that. And so there is a lot to know, but of course, all of this you can learn. And like any property strategy that's new to you, you've got to start at the beginning and make sure you get the fundamental knowledge.
Yeah, I think we can add to that. And this is interesting out there. If this is new to you, as I say, we're just focusing on development today, is that the government actually supports this strategy. Now, if you're into buy-to-lets, you'll know that the government isn't too friendly to the buy-to-let landlord. If you are into buy-to-lets, or you want to get into buy-to-lets, don't fear. Go and speak to Simon's Business, speak to Pin. It's about knowing the latest ways and the get rounds and the loopholes and the ways that you tackle the marketplace. I think that's so important, Simon, isn't it? Don't get frightened off by it. If you want to pass that, or want or need that passive income, and you want to build a buy-to-let portfolio, it's knowing how to get around that with the way the government's treating the buy-to-let landlords. That's important, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the government is encouraging people to set up companies because they don't want millions of individual landlords. They want to have corporate bodies and entities because they feel they're easier to tax and legislate. So all you have to do is understand the way things are going and adapt and pivot, and then you can still make really good money from rental property. There's always going to be demand. There's just not enough accommodation, and the government needs the private rental sector to provide that shortfall of accommodation.
Yeah. And I think then if we go back to this government, what the government is doing, and a lot of people might not realize this, if property development is the place for you, if you're looking for those lumps of money and you're relatively stable, as Simon and I have talked about on today's show, then the government will support you. Okay. They're not going to give you a cash handout. So don't think you're suddenly going to get a check from Sunak. That's not going to happen. Okay. Not unless he puts his seatbelt on anyway. Bless him, poor fellow. He got caught the other day, didn't he? Anyway. Mix small scale with permitted development rights. Okay, permitted development rights are given to you by the government. They don't give us a lot, okay? So let's take whatever we can get, okay? Particularly as property people, they are actually supporting small-scale developers, because actually we used to deliver about 30% of houses in this country from small-scale developers. That's about 12% now. It's way, way down. And the government are trying to get that back. And they're trying to short-circuit the planning system, because the planning system in this country is broken. You could go in for planning 12, 18, 24 months, because I bet, let me ask you this. You're all sat there listening to this, okay, and you're probably thinking, I wouldn't mind doing a bit of, greenfield site development, putting on some nice houses. I'm going to go and buy a bit of land. Well, you could be risking your money. There is a way around that. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll bring that into the conversation. But you must not just go out and buy a site on bridging blindly, thinking you're going to get planning in 6 months, because you won't, okay? 12, 18, maybe 24 months later. So one option is to consider permitted development rights, okay? Because in 56 days, you get your permission. You don't have to do a full planning application. And you can actually go out there. There is about £1.9 million homes estimated to be available from brownfield land. I'm talking about, and tell me this, have you seen in your area shops, banks, cafes, restaurants, offices, light industrial clinics, health centres, day nurseries, gyms, all of those buildings? Have you seen any of those empty? Yeah, damn right you have, haven't you? I mean, you're all nodding. I can tell at the screen, even though I'm not listening right now because this is recorded. But you are. Okay, because these buildings are out there, they're empty across this country. We need to regenerate them. There's 1.9 million homes in those. And of course, you can go out and convert those under permitted development rights. Now, for some people, and we get a lot of students come through and go, yeah, but I want to do new build development. I want to do land development. Or I want to do something that doesn't have the permitted development rights. And that's fine, because opportunities come along. And of course, the important thing then is, how do we deal with it? I don't want you just going to go out and buy it, or buy it on bridging, because you could be in all sorts of trouble. There is a cleverer way. Simon, do you want to just talk about, because I know you specialize in teaching this, about options. Can we talk about that today? So I think that
absolutely. You're completely right, Ritchie. If someone sees a piece of land and think, oh, there's an opportunity there, and there may or may not be, buying that speculatively, hoping you're going to get planning, is a very risky thing to do, particularly if you're borrowing money and that interest is building up. So rather than buying the land, the much better thing to do, which is what all the big national home builders do, by the way, is they use purchase options to control land. So you enter into an agreement with the owner saying, look, I'd like to buy it, but I just need to get planning permission in place. And some of the builders, they get options on land for literally 10, 20 years. I'm not suggesting you will do that, but in a market where someone is struggling to sell a piece of land or a building, and you come along and say, look, I'd like to buy it, but I just want to get some planning in place. It would be a mistake for you to tell them you want to get planning, go and get planning. Because by the way, anyone can apply for planning. You don't have to own the land. Anyone can apply. But that would be a mistake, because if you went back and said, right, now I've got planning, I'd like to buy it, please. Unless you had that locked down, unless you have a purchase option that controls that, the owner could turn around and say, well, thanks for getting the planning permission. Now I want to charge you more money because it's worth more. Or they could go and sell it to someone else. So you identify the opportunity, you go and negotiate, put a purchase option in place, which basically means you have exclusivity. It's for a period of time, fully negotiable. And it means that if you want to buy that piece of land or that asset, you're the only person who, the owner cannot sell it to anybody else. So this buys you time to get your planning permission in place. It buys you time to find joint venture partners or investors to put the money in. It buys you time. If maybe you're selling it onto someone else, your deal packaging, it's what we call a lockout agreement. So a purchase option gives you the ability to control that asset. And it's not something new. It comes from the world of commercial property and development, but actually more and more, we're now using it in residential property as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is really, really powerful. Simon, you've got a couple of examples of where you've seen this being used, just to really bring this to life to people.
So one of my students, a guy called Nick Salmon, he's a pretty successful developer, and he spotted an office block in the Midlands. Now, it wasn't actually permitted development for various reasons. So what he had to do was he had to apply for planning. He recognized, he's done a lot of this, it could convert into 8 really good apartments. I think it was on the market for something like 415,000. Now, here's an interesting point. Rather than haggling and bringing someone down on the price, you can say, look, I'll give you the full price if you give me the terms I want, i.e. a bit of time. So he negotiated a year to get the planning in place. Now, he was buying for 415 with the planning permission for 8 apartments. The site was worth 560. So he went to Crowd Property, which full declaration is another one of my businesses. And Crowd Property said, yeah, well, based on the value on a RIC survey of 560,000, they lent him 400,000. That's something like 93% of the purchase price. So he put a small bit of deposit in. He paid his legal costs and stamp duty. They then lent him 100% of the build cost. So by controlling an asset and adding value through planning before you buy and increasing the value, it means you can actually buy using less of your own money, because bridging companies will often look at the value, not just the purchase price. So it's having this specialist knowledge will allow you to do more deals with the money you have, put less in, and so get a higher return on investment. And it really is specialist knowledge. I mean, some people have heard about purchase options, lease options, purchase lease options, but they don't really understand them properly. And my view is, if someone thinks they know about it, but hasn't actually used one, well, they probably don't really know enough, because otherwise they would have used one by now. Does that make sense, Ritchie?
No, that does. I think that's good. And Simon, I think, look, for everyone out there, if you're listening, grab your pen and paper, make sure you've got your cameras ready, because Simon, you've got, we'll get it put onto this document. If you could just hook out the dates, I know you've got some option stuff coming up, where people could come and learn some of that. Maybe we could give that out at the end of this show, just so when people,
absolutely happy to do that. We run some live webinars, and if you miss those, there's an opportunity to get on some recorded ones. So maybe we can put up a QR code or a link. Come and register. It's completely free training, just to really open your mind. And many people, when they do this kind of training with us, completely free, they realize, oh my God, I never knew I could do all these things. And I never knew that I could use these purchase options and purchase lease options to have far more control, do things much quicker than if you're buying something conventionally. And again, options and purchase options, just like anything, they work in certain circumstances. They don't work all the time. But on this free training, we're going to teach you when they work and what to look out for to see if they're suitable. And I say, the great thing about purchase options and purchase lease options, they work in conjunction with every strategy you want to do, whether you want to do single lets, HMOs, commercial to residential development, just commercial property in the right circumstances, they can work with everything. So look for the link at the end of this and come and register for that free training.
Great stuff. So we'll mention that again in a minute, so you've got that. But look, I think, how powerful is that you can actually put these options into this world of small-scale property development? If you haven't got permitted development rights, don't fear, you can do it. The interesting thing about this, again, this is a longer strategy that we're talking about on this opportunity that exists in this 2023 market. Even with options, it's an even longer strategy, but it's something you probably should be doing in parallel to your other maybe permitted development rights schemes. Let's just briefly, Simon, just talk about money, because I think people are always worried about money, about getting money to the projects. But we know there's a good supply of money out there. And if you've got permitted development rights, or you've got an option agreement, as you discussed, the money is out there for good deals, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much money out there. I don't think money's a problem. I think actually finding the deals is where the skill is. And because of that, if you find a good project that's got plenty of profit in it, there are lots of people, whether it's banks, institutions, bridgers, or even individuals who are prepared to back you because they know they can get a good return. And I mean, just one source, there are so many people who have money in SAS pensions, small self-administered schemes, which are perfect to lend into development projects. So there's lots of money out there. Obviously, lenders want to make sure that you know what you're doing. And actually, the reason these small-scale developers are popular is because they're not actually tying up their money for a long time. People don't want to sink their money in for 3, 4, 5 years, but if it's a year, 18 months, etc., those are the kind of timeframes people are looking for. And here's the other really important thing I want to share, Ritchie. Once you've done a deal with a private lender and you give them their money back, guess what they say to you, Ritchie?
I think I might know. They might say, do you want to keep it and go again?
Exactly, because they've got used to the good. Now, you're paying them a very generous interest, much more than they get in the bank. But if you've got a good, profitable project, you can cover all those costs. So obviously, you can work with private lenders. Obviously, you can work with Crowd Property. I have to mention that. And you can get a very quick response from them. And because they don't just lend on one source of money, where all the banks have put their rates up, as we're recording this, Crown Property have not had to put their rates up. So they're very, very competitive and they're very quick. And they have a lot of money ready to lend for the right kind of projects. So they don't lend money to projects that aren't very good. And in fact, if you are interested in learning a bit more about how can I get really good projects that are going to be funded, Ritchie, but we're helping to promote. We are doing a UK developer conference.
Yeah.
Now, if I can mention this, Ritchie, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's mention that, because this is a joint conference that we're doing between us, propertyCEO, PIN, and Crowd Property. So yeah, let's just mention it.
Absolutely. So look, we've not got any links to this. This is a kind of a save the date announcement. So get a pen and paper, write this down. Wednesday, the 22nd of March, 2023. Now, we've picked a Wednesday because, to be honest, this is aimed at people who probably already have a little bit of experience. It's not really for complete newbies. You can come if you're new, but really it's people who've got a bit of experience already, who just know the potential of development, but maybe they've had some challenges. Maybe they've started to realize they don't know what they don't know. And what Ritchie is doing is putting together some industry experts that you probably haven't ever seen speak at something like a PIN meeting or a white box meeting, whatever. These are specialists that Ritchie has used that are in his kind of trusted circle, who are really going to help point out what are some of the mistakes and the challenges that most developers come across and don't even know it's going to be a problem until they hit it, when it's too late. And actually, if you understand this, you can navigate your way through the world of small scale property developments and really minimize the risks and the expensive mistakes. So it's going to be a full day of training. Ritchie's hosting it. We're going to have all these industry experts who you won't have seen speak before. Crowd Property are going to be there talking about how you can fund it. And it's going to be one of the events where you can not only learn, but also connect and network with other like-minded people. So it's a full day of training. We're going to give you lunch, workbook, all that kind of stuff. As always, all the events we do like this, they come with money-back guarantees. So if by lunchtime, you don't think it's just one of the best things you've done in terms of increasing your development knowledge and awareness, just let us know and have all your money back. And we're doing it in the Midlands. It's a UK developer conference, so it's just by the NEC in Birmingham, south of Birmingham. So no matter where you're based in the country, you'll be able to get to this event. Now, I want to tell you to put the date in your diary. You can't actually book anything just yet, but very soon, some emails will be coming out from propertyCEO telling you how you can book. And because propertyCEO are one of the main companies, there will be obviously I guess, some sort of discount for your members. Maybe Ritchie's negotiating that for everyone. But guys, check it out, put it in the diary, full day of training. Come and really learn how you can make the most out of the incredible opportunities in 2023.
Yeah, and I think we're talking. It's good that we mentioned that tonight, because that it is all about property development. And I think the interesting thing about property development, so I mean, you're talking about making, if you get into small scale development, seriously, minimum 100,000 out of a deal. We're probably talking 100 to 300,000. Some of our students are making 500,000. Okay, some are making more. I've got one student, their first deal is projected, I tell you, because it's not certain at the moment, 1.2 million. She's just secured a deal and she's projecting 1.2 million profit. I have to say that's right at the top end, and that's probably not where you're going to be, but that is fantastic. First project ever, okay? But real switched on cookie, I will tell you that. But 100,000, 300,000 pounds is what you can make out of small scale property. It does make a big difference. And of course, you can actually, as we talked about earlier, so you can link that to building your portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. You can combine small scale property developments with actually being a landlord. So imagine how many buy-to-lets you could buy each year with 100 to 300,000 pounds of profit if you did a small scale development. So you make the development, then you put it back into the properties you want to retain. Yeah,
it's important. I'll tell you what we'll do, just to try and wrap up, and I'll tell you what, we'll give you that date again, because you might not have had a pen for that conference, and we'll also talk about, Simon, if you can just get the dates to hand for those options, so we'll have that at the end. But I'm just talking about, we started this conversation, I think it's been a fantastic conversation about where the opportunities are. We decided then to focus, as we've gone on, completely unplanned, purely about property development, but it suits us here at propertyCEO, so we're happy with that. But I think the important thing is, you might go, well, why? What about the timings? What about, is it a little bit dodgy at the moment? Let me just give you some food for thought, folks, if you're listening to this, okay? We all believe there's going to be a bit of a downturn. I'm certain of that. We all believe there's going to be a downturn. Well, that is the opportunity. Because just have a think about it. Those vendors that have those buildings that are empty, that are unused, that their rates, their energy costs, everything's going up. Do you think they're going to be a little bit motivated, more motivated as we go into 2023? You know the answer. It's a yes, okay? If you spend time now, I don't mean in 6 months, I don't mean in 12 months, because you're going to miss the boat, okay? So I'm telling you now, if you don't do this, it's entirely up to you. It won't change my life, but it might change yours. Spend time now getting prepared, getting educated, okay, ready for this. Whether you get educated with us, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the difference to me, but get educated to do this properly, okay? If you're in a position by Q2, Q3 this year, that I believe, personally, I believe is going to be a great opportunity when I think there's going to be a significant dip. Whether it's the bottom of the market, I don't know. But there's definitely going to be an opportunity to buy pretty keen prices on some commercial buildings. Would you agree with that, Simon?
Absolutely. There are going to be sellers who are really worried that prices might drop as much as they did in 2008, 20, 30%. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but there'll be lots of landlords who remember that. And they've had really good growth over the last 12 years. So they'll be prepared to sell at a discount now while everything's coming down. So now is absolutely the right time to be securing those kind of deals. And Rich, if you think about how long it's going to take to develop those, a year and a half maybe, by the time they're developed, the market would have probably corrected and started to come up, which is a perfect time for you to be selling those units.
Perfect. That is, and there's one more stage in the middle, and let's just mention that, because I bet a lot of you out there thinking, yeah, but material prices, I'm concerned about those. They will correct, okay, because most of the major house builders at the back end of 2022 have stopped their building, okay, and rightly so. They don't build speculatively. They only really build to order, okay, much what you might think. They've stopped. They've slowed down. It will mean that there's going to be an oversupply of labor, okay, and a lack of demand for materials. So you're actually not only going to better potentially buy in the middle of 2023 at a discounted price, you're going to get the materials and labor at a keener price than you would have done in 2022 because they're searching for work. And as Simon just said, you're putting it back in the market in 2024 when everyone predicts there's going to be a rise. Now, right now, could just be the best time to start your property development journey if that's the place to be. Bear in mind that caution we made earlier at the beginning, at the top of the show. If you need passive income and you need income in the next few months, don't try and become a developer. Go away, talk to Simon's business, talk to Pin, okay? Come back and talk to us later on. If actually you're in a position where you want to earn some six-figure sums of money and the rest of your life supports that, then maybe have a think about it.
Yeah,
Simon,
actually, if you do need cash flow now, we talked about purchase options that can be used in development to control land. A purchase lease option is where you take on an existing property from a tied landlord, rent it out, and that will give you cash flow now. And if you have a nice 3 to 5 year option period, not only do you get cash flow now, you've got the potential upside as the market recovers as well. So you should, whether you're new to property, experiencing property, you should absolutely come and listen to this complimentary training we're doing. We'll put the link somewhere around here, all about purchase options and purchase lease options, which when the market's coming down and sellers are motivated, they're far more flexible about these kind of creative ways of doing deals.
What's the dates for that, Simon? And we put a QR. I think we get a QR.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of live dates, and if you, we'll put the link to that. And if the live date's gone, basically you can then just come and watch a recording, which isn't as good because you can't get your questions answered. So I'll just take action right now. Click on the link. If the date works, you great. Register. If you can't make that date, just register anyway, and then we'll send you a link to the recording when that's done. Brilliant. Is there one date or two dates in terms of what we're putting up? There's actually going to be 2 dates for live events. There's slightly different content, so you might want to listen to both of them. But come and register, and you'll see exactly what's there. Great stuff. We'll make sure a code gets put up by our team. Click on that, and Simon says, get in and do that. That is great. And obviously, don't forget, we here at propertyCEO, and of course, Pim will announce it as well. So I know a lot of people watch our channel here. So if you're actually part of Pim, you might get an announcement from them. You might get an announcement from us. Yep. For this development conference on the 22nd. If you're serious about property development, you don't want to miss that. We are expecting to sell that room out. Okay. Yep. And there's only one conference that we're doing. There's nothing like it before. And I think the great thing is that there's not a big sales fest. There's nothing to sell in that day. It's all about content. And as Simon said, these industry professionals, I mean, you will have your eyes opened if you're new to property, or even if you're getting into property development, as Simon says, or you're the part of that journey, even if you've done a couple of deals and they haven't gone quite as you imagined, come along.
you'll actually maybe get your eyes open to how to do this stuff properly, and that is so important. I think that's been an interesting chat today, isn't it, about the 2023?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Thank you so much for asking me, Ritchie. Really appreciate it.
Great stuff. Simon, thank you for coming on. We'll make sure those links are in there. We'll make sure some links to the PIN network are there so people can come to PIN meetings. They can get in touch with your people. We'll put all those links below in the notes. So if you want to have a look at that, then please do so. Simon, thanks for coming on. I'm just going to wrap up the end of the show, and we'll see you soon.
Great. Thank you.
There we go. How was that? What a fantastic show. I mean, we started and we had no idea where it was going to go. And thankfully, it all revolved around property development. I mean, you might say that was a little bit selfish on my part, but hey, maybe it was. Who knows? But I generally think, hopefully, that's some good content for you. There's some good things to make you think about, some real opportunities. Grab a place on those option courses. Even if you've done a bit of development, they will be useful. Please make sure that date's there, 22nd of March. We'll give you more details in due course for that. And one other thing, if you are interested in property development, just write this down, propertyceo.co.uk/SFR, /SFR. I won't confuse you with other QR codes. We'll put that link at the bottom of the screen. That can take you through for a bit of free training. Dip your toe in the water of small-scale property development and see what you think. Thanks for watching. See you soon now. Bye-bye.